guys for joining. You guys can hear me okay? Mauricio, I'm sounding good? Okay. So, thank you all for joining, Miss Yvonne, Victor, Benny, Ron, Chris. Uh, thank you guys for joining. One of the things that I wanted to talk about this week is, how to start growing your business, how to improve efficiencies, different things you can do to attract staff, how to start with staff, and things kind of getting out of the solopreneur position. But before we go into that, I wanted to see if anybody wanted to share a win that they've had since last week. Any brave volunteers, Mr. Ron?
Hey, um, yeah, it's been good. Last week, I have a personal win, because I was introduced to a veteran that he had to lose part of his foot because of Agent Orange and diabetes. And he's an avid car enthusiast, and he goes to all the car shows, because he owns Mustangs. And this year, 2 weeks ago, no, a week ago, he went to the show, but he was sitting in his seat and he couldn't go anywhere and used to visit his friends. So friends of mine called me and asked me, I said, hey, look, I know you got a scooter, an electric scooter. Would you mind renting it to us? I said, no, I'm not going to rent it to you. I am going to donate it to the veteran. So when we rolled out there, that was Friday, they were at the show. So we rolled out there Saturday, and we get in there, and there's this big detailing booth called Adams Polishes, very, very well known. So we rolled up there, and my buddy said to him, says, hey, why don't you detail the scooter? They jumped right on it. They shined this thing up, even down to the wheels. So when I rolled it out to the vet out to where he was set up at, I mean, his eyes, his wife, they were just so thankful. So, and after I left, I found out that after I left where he was, I found out that he was gone all day. So that gave him his life back. He was able to go and do what he wanted to do, see all of his friends. So that was pretty good. And my other win is that I just landed another another decent order. Let's see, what is it? I was just doing everything for that. That's 330 pieces. So
Nice.
so yeah, those are my wins.
No, well, that's definitely a big win. When you're able to, just give back, help individuals. Especially in your community.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it worth worth it. Being in business for yourself, just being able to give back. Um, I think that's kind of when you get to that point where you're able to help out your community. It kind of almost turns into a habit where you're like, this feels pretty good. I talked to some businesses, where it's like, hey, why don't you possibly do some sort of give back program? A lot of companies do like, X percentage back to certain organizations. I know we do stuff with veterans as well and things like that. So that's definitely a big win, Ron. I'm pretty sure, that made you feel really good. Just hearing about it, it's amazing being able to donate.
Yeah, just hearing the feedback from his wife and stuff, and they were just so ecstatic because he would otherwise have been sitting, couldn't hardly walk, and this just totally basically put wheels under him. And the funny thing was that Sunday when we got back, I got another update. She says, "Look, says John was always in the garage working on his cars, and since he had to have surgery and stuff, it was her duty. He called her, I need this, go get me this. He was her gopher. And so she said Sunday, he didn't ask for nothing. He just hopped on the scooter and rode through his garage, got what he wanted, and just kept on getting it. So yes,
No,
it
that's really good.
it is good. And that's what we do with our foundation anyway, to give back to the veterans in our community and to help them have a better life. So yes, that was an extra special win, and I loved it.
That's really good. And for the order that you received, you mind sharing a little bit about, what it's about, how you're gonna do it, maybe how you landed it?
Well, this order is from a nonprofit. They do dog training for free for
Oh
veterans,
wow.
and they train service dogs, and it doesn't cost the veteran a dime. They raise their money through t-shirt sales and other fundraisers that they do. And the biggest thing is when they're ready to uh, have that dog certified, and they take it through certification along with the veteran. The veteran works with them on the day of graduation. Now, you would I mean, it's just amazing to see how that dog takes to the veteran to understand what's going on, to understand that if they're going through PTSD struggles and so forth and so on. And in a lot of instances, the dog is able to go get things for him, like a walking cane or open doors for him. And some of the dogs are even carrying light grocery bags when the veteran has to have both hands using a scooter or whatever. So great program. Um, they were an existing customer, and they kind of fell off for a while, and they tried somebody else, and guess what? They end up coming back.
Well, thanks for sharing, Ron. That's definitely a good organization. Being able to work with a nonprofit like that. I've never heard of that. Where they train, service animals. I know, a lot of people get service animals just to try to get them into different, like, for selfish reasons that has nothing to do with like a purpose. They just get them certified just to board a plane with you, that kind of stuff. So it's good to hear that there's actual organizations, helping veterans out, for those kind of activities. Well, thank you for sharing, Ron. Those are definitely big wins right there. Victor, is there anything you'd like to share? I know me and you had a really good conversation last week. Thank you for co-hosting, literally co-hosting with me last week.
Yeah, you got to put me on the credits on YouTube. Tag me.
Mauricio,
Yeah.
we're adding the tasks for you, Mauricio, this today.
Everything's going well. I was supposed to be on vacation this week, but I think I got a little over anxious on it. So it's actually next week. So I'll be on
Yeah,
the
I was
road next
wondering.
week.
I'm like, you must be in your RV traveling down the road with the driver.
No, no, I got the weeks wrong, but we're leaving next week. Good. We had a bunch of orders from the All-Star and another baseball tournament. I told them I was going to deliver everything tomorrow, and I delivered probably about 95% of it on Monday. And that includes like board gear and coaches gear and stuff like that, and plus all the orders. And I had three mess ups where I put the wrong roster on one shirt, and I forgot to put the embroidered number on two items, and that's it. And that was like over 100 orders. So it's not that bad. I'll just reprint the shirt, and I'm going to collect the jackets, embroider the numbers on them, and give them back on Saturday and bill them. So it's invoice day. So that's a good thing.
Time to
Um,
collect, make that vacation fun, right?
right, exactly. So, you know, um, things are just going well. And that was a repeat customer from last year, and that's about it. So just plugging away.
So when you take your vacation next week, I know you had mentioned that you weren't going to be processing any orders or receiving any new orders, or what's your vacation plan for
Well,
work?
my older boys aren't coming. So they probably will stay and work, and I'll email them tasks. But on the website, I set an expectation that any orders placed today through the 24th won't get shipped till the 1st of July.
Hmm.
And that's just in case there's some issue or I get lazy and I don't want to place an order for merchandise or whatever. But that's the expectation, and I know I can meet that. But honestly, people won't even notice it, and if anything, I'll end up coming out a hero because they'll get their stuff way faster than they thought.
No, that's really good because I know, being a small business, taking a vacation, it almost seems like that's a big milestone when you can take a vacation as a business owner and not pay attention to your phone, not pay attention to your emails, because I know
I didn't
even
say all
myself,
that. I didn't say all that. I'm still paying attention,
no,
but at least I get to
that's
get
what I'm
away.
saying. That would be a good milestone to get to that point,
Yeah.
because I didn't get to that point for a long. for a long time. Even when I had like multiple department staff and stuff like that, I would always be attending stuff. And I remember, and it seems like when you're out of communication, that's when the fires, for whatever reason, blaze up, right? I remember, I would go on vacation and, uh, Puerto Vallarta inland, there's like a small town that I like to visit. That's where, my family grew up. And then there would be events where it's like, a cowboy riding event, and it'd be like, in the dead zone, right? I'd be out of commission for like 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours of no reception, and then when I get back, the reception back is like the sky is falling, right? So it's like even when you're on vacation, but it's like you're on vacation, you're handling stuff, and then for whatever reason, 2 3 hours, when you're not available, that's when everything for whatever reason piles up. But you know, I like how you have everything organized, Victor. It's not your first rodeo. You give yourself plenty of turnaround time. You have your sons on there, so that's really good that you're able to do that. And you're still
Yes.
going up to the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, still going up to San Francisco to see my wife's family. So I
Okay,
don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'll be up there.
cool. Well, thanks for sharing, Miss Yvonne. I have short-term memory. I'm not sure if you were on last week. I don't think you were, right? You're on mute.
No,
Did
we
I do
weren't
something
on.
wrong, or did I do something
Oh,
wrong? What happened?
Michael's very sick.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So the blessing of it is he's been working a lot with the boy that is working for him. So the blessing out of this is that he has stepped up and he knows what he's got to do and he's taking care of it. And Michael hasn't been out to the shop since Thursday. So he's the young man that works for us is doing very well.
No, well, that's really good. And I hopefully everything turns out real good for Mike. And
Thank
this
you.
is kind of where those situations happen, right? Life happens, and hopefully you have the support that you need. I know, it's kind of like some of us can relate. If not most of us can relate. Once you have situations where it's health related, everything else goes out the door, right? You're like, I'm not gonna worry about the little stuff anymore. It kind of puts things into perspective. But
Yep.
definitely, wish him the best. And it kind of
Thank you.
ties into what I wanted to talk about, with staff and growing. And then this is kind of where, people are going to step up. You're going to have that situation where, luckily for yourself, Yvonne, that person that's helping you guys out, he's showing that he's capable, he's willing, and, helping you guys out with that. And it seems like, that's a reflection of your guys' training, because one of the biggest things is having a nice positive work environment, keeping stuff, making it positive, because that's when stuff gets really tight, that's where that's gonna make it or break it. Is like, especially because you know for the most part, people are tied to a paycheck. They're loyal to the paycheck, right? But then once you develop that good atmosphere, that good, working environment, that's when, like me for myself, I remember, I was able to build this, like, it almost felt like a small little family, right? Everybody, would be in their own departments doing their own things. Something happens, somebody's sick, somebody's not in, people have no problem, picking up the slack or picking up the extra, responsibilities. And that all boils down to having a good working environment. So what kind of new stuff would you say, Yvonne, that this what's the staff's name? I know we've seen, that's the one that we've seen in the background working.
Yeah, his name is Juan,
Oh yeah,
and
Juan, famous Juan.
he's been working for us just under a year, and he wanted to start his own brand and make his own t-shirts and designs and stuff. And sometimes he'll come to me and say, oh, I designed a new t-shirt. And I said, well, show it to Michael and he's going to show you what all has to be done. And you tell him how many t-shirts. And he's had a couple. He is a youth pastor. So
wow,
he
okay.
likes to do some inspirational t-shirts and stuff. So there's been a couple times he came to us and we kind of like donated the shirts to his cause so that he can start building his brand. And, you know, I told him about, you know, you come up with this design, have it available for this long. Once that's gone, tell him, look, I'm not making more. So if you want it, come get it. And so we've been trying to keep him motivated in that aspect.
No, that's really good because once you get somebody in that situation, right, where they're more connected to the process, like, you know, they get more invested, right? You know, especially if, you know, if you have staff that also, you know, they're more passionate about it, and not only that, you know, they're trying to go out there and get business for yourself, right? You know, that just makes it all that much easier. You guys are able to relate to more stuff. Congratulations on almost making it to the year. You know, for my experience, you know, with dealing with new staff, like the crazy would come out on, you know, within like after 90 days, that's when the crazy comes out, right?
Yeah, yeah. But
That's
he's
when the real,
excited
uh-huh.
because he has so many options. You know, we have the I2, we have the DTF, we have the screen printing and the embroidery and the laser engraving. So there's a wide vast of things that he's learning how to make. Because I look at him sometimes and I'm like, you had no idea when you put that foot into the apparel business how much it really entails.
Yeah, definitely. No, well, that's really good, Yvonne. That, you know, you have fun and he's able to help you out.
But thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Then Miss,
yeah. I'm very lucky because he's been helping me, being that our shop is right next to our house. He's able to like help me after work, take stuff in the house that I need brought into the house that I can't lift, because right now Michael can't lift anything and he can't walk very far. And so it's a blessing we have one helping out.
no, that's really good. You know, that's really good. Well, thank you for sharing that. You know, it all ties into, you know, what we're gonna be talking about. Chris, nice to see you. Anything you would like to share since last week? I
Yeah,
know
I'll
you
make
always
it
have a
quick
lot of
because
you have a
time
lot of
flies.
cool stuff. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, well, so my main focus is trying to help my daughter chase her dreams. And so she has this little online clothing store that's kind of, you know, starting to take off. And, you know, she's trying to find her niche, which is kind of like I'm designing her graphic tees. So she's trying to do small batch exclusive, like Yvonne was saying, create that sense of urgency because there's this many, and when they're gone, they're gone. Sorry, no one else makes those. And so she did a two pop-up events recently and did really well. And one of them was through Douglas County, and the organizer for the events for the county came and said, you know, we love what you're doing. We want you to participate in these other two events. And it's just so cool to see the Lord working too, because she is stepping out in faith and she gave her notice at her real job,
Oh,
and she's going to do
yeah.
Valley Cactus full time. And, you know, just has been blowing through inventory, and my printer finally came. And so I'm getting my feet wet with that, which is strangely a pretty large learning curve. I'm finding out just, you know, because every company has their own software and they call the same thing a different name, and it's hidden in a different place. And so anyway, that's my issue. I'm just trying to, you know, get more familiar, but oh my gosh, so nice to have it back, because the difference between direct to garment and, you know, transfer film, and that it's just like direct to garment is my jam. Right. So I'm super happy to have it back. But I could not be more excited for where things are going for Marissa and her business and how I get to support her in that. And so that's my victory this week, is just watching things take off for her and being able to be part of it with all this great stuff. And you guys.
Thanks. Well, that's definitely a big victory. Congratulations to your daughter. Leaving your job and going full throttle into your passion. I'm pretty sure that's exciting and frightening all at the same time, right? Luckily, for myself, I like to say I've been a free range chicken since I was 17. I was kind of roaming around doing my own thing. So that's really good, especially having the support from you. Because, it seems like a lot of people, they might be chasing their dream and, family are not able to relate. Family are not really there to be supportive and helpful. So it seems like, she's in good hands, especially if you're the one that's helping her out with the printing and, with the graphic design is, the biggie. I know from those of you guys, I'm not sure how many of you guys can relate, but from my personal experience, like on the printing side, on the printing world, it's like art is everything, right? If you don't have the right artwork, you can have the best equipment, but it's not gonna come out. It's like garbage in, garbage out. That's what somebody would always tell me. So that's a big. Ron, you raised your hand. Was you had a question, or were you just saying amen to that? Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, Chris. And it kind of ties into, let me pull up my talking points that I wanted to, cover. Let me see here. So it kind of ties into, you know, especially when it comes to expanding your business. One of the biggest things that I like, that made a difference for myself, and I think I've touched up on it a little bit in the past, is something called lean manufacturing. I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard about this term or not, but it's super important to get familiar with that. I see, Chris, you put on the chat. Anyone willing to share about the RIP? Is that the information that you need for the RIP software for the direct to garment printer, Chris?
No, I just wondered if anyone was willing to share a phone number and email. So as questions pop up, I'm like, who can I call? I need someone who knows how to use this. Just because, like I said, there's kind of a big learning curve, and I've been doing the academy classes, which have been great. But it's funny because it's clear that they don't approach it from like the person who's never ever opened this particular software before. Like I was watching maintenance videos and I was trying to figure out how to replace one of the drip sponges, and you can find how to reset the thing on your computer program to tell you when you're supposed to replace it, but you can't find the maintenance video that says, here's how you replace it. It's just stuff like that where like the information is there. It's just not always easy to find. And so when you can reach out to someone who, like works with these machines day in and day out, or works with that safe software day in and day out, it can be a big time saver if someone is willing to just, like field a question now and then. And like I've looked at the videos from the creators live that are on YouTube, but the chat information isn't always there. So like, even if I wanted to go back and say, oh, like, what was that person's name? Maybe I can find them, So I thought I would just take a minute to reach out and say, like, if anybody wants to share an email. I mean, I can't reciprocate much right now because I'm still on the learning curve side of things, but I'm happy to do so when I get a little more up and running. So that was what that question was about.
I think you're able to reciprocate quite a bit. You did a whole Kittle training for us. I'm sure somebody will be willing to barter, AI training.
I hope that was helpful.
It was very helpful. That's definitely on my to-do list, is to learn, more about that. Because you have the free jet, right?
Yeah, the 330 TX Plus.
Yeah, I just put my email in the chat. You can definitely email me any questions. If you want to take a screenshot or anything like that. If it has to do with the free jet, I can definitely, point you in the right direction. If it has to do with, a DTF printer, I can't. The free jets, I use them for like at least 10 years. So I can literally, taking them apart and reassemble them all together.
That's awesome.
Ron put his info, and then you'll get familiar with it. Especially once you're using it, you'll get familiar with. It's kind of like it'll be the same thing it's not like you're always stumbling into different problems. So it's like if it's one thing, it's always going to be the same way to fix it. And at least that was my experience. So Ron put his information on
Thank
there.
you.
Ron has it in his background. He always has them running, so he can definitely help you out with that.
Thanks, guys.
And then since since we're on the subject that we're at, Chris, when did you get your printer?
It arrived like on Wednesday, and then I had to leave on Friday. So I literally had 2 days to just they shipped it because I bought it refurbished, because that's what I could afford at the time. And so they shipped it with distilled water in the lines. So I had to figure out how to purge the lines, fill with ink,
Okay.
get it. But I'm not kidding you guys. I didn't even do a nozzle check and it printed perfectly the first time. I mean, I just could not have been more impressed. And I mean, I had like a dinosaur. I had the Ricoh 6000, like a 20 some odd year old machine that was just chugging along, but it was so temperamental. I couldn't stand it. So for me, this is a huge upgrade and I love it, but it was just absolutely gut wrenching to have to walk away from it when it was brand new and I had just started to kind of figure things out. And then I had to leave because we had an out of town trip. So, my goal today is to just fire it up and get it printing again. And that's the thing that's kind of cool about what's going on with Marissa's business is I have 100 shirts to print tomorrow. So I'm excited and ready. And it's just, again, that, new software and kind of troubleshooting, just the ins and outs of because it's not second nature yet. I don't,
Yeah.
after I use it for a week, I won't have to think and I won't be second guessing myself so much. But right now I'm it's like getting a new computer. You're so afraid to push a button because you might somehow delete everything, It's
Yeah.
that weird fear of breaking something or doing something wrong, which is irrational. I get it. So anyway.
And then you'll find out that those printers are, at least from my personal experience, they're little workhorses, right? I used to have, a bunch of them, in our screen print area. So they'd be, by the screen print oven, the automatic press. There have been times where I'd be really back in the production area. And they'd still be chugging along. I know some other equipment you need to have a temperature controlled environment for it, but I found out that those printers are little workhorses. And for that order, you said you have 100 shirts that you need to print.
Yeah, not all the same design, but I'd look like a total of 100.
Okay. And then you said you've had a Ricoh, so you're familiar with doing direct to garment and pre-treating and all that stuff?
Yeah, and I got the pre-treat machine as well.
Okay, that's really good.
Yeah, so I've got it, and I filled it all up, and I watched the tutorial. I just haven't used it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties into what I was talking about right now with lean manufacturing. In case you're not familiar with that process, that terminology, it's pretty much, when it comes to production, is how do you minimize waste, right? And especially when you're starting off, it's the best. You're at the best spot to get your processes dialed in because you don't want to scale up and you found yourself that you're doing stuff the wrong way. Now you have staff, you train them the wrong way, they're doing stuff the wrong way. So you definitely want to be organized when you get started. And especially I'm going to use you, Chris, as an example right now that you have your new equipment. Just in how you do maintenance for it, making sure that you're properly turning it on, doing the right maintenance, not wasting a lot of ink. Yvonne, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Chris, when you order shirts, get a shirt for whatever color, get extras because the pre-treating machine does have a learning curve and you're going to have a lot of R&D to dial in the settings because I found just from our machine being in the house to the shop, there was a difference. So you want to make sure that you have some shirts that you can play with and practice on because that does have a learning curve, very much so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's one thing that's kind of nice about having gone to the show in January is, like they're just throwing free shirts at you all day long. And I mean, I know each shirt is different, has some characteristics, but it's been really
Yeah.
nice to have free shirts to practice on and just like printing on every square inch to try, different combinations of things, different tools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And,
So that's a good
do it,
point.
yeah, do it on the outside of the shirt, not the inside, because that too can give you a false
Different
positive
result.
or whatever. So I always, when we were first into it, I would order 2 or 3 extra shirts, like in small or extra small, the cheapest shirt, so that I could play and practice and, change the dials. And because it has where you can do this much or this much or that much. And I would always do this part and write on the shirt what I did, and this part, just so you can figure out what's going to be best for what you're doing.
Right.
And
That's
you're
great.
part of the country, where you live can have a effect on stuff too.
Oh yeah, it's so dry here. We really struggle with not having enough humidity. I run a commercial humidifier in here like 3 or 4 hours every day because it's so dry.
Yeah. And I have a dehumidifier. So go figure.
What part of the country? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm at the
Thank
base
you.
of a mountain, so the water runs off the mountain. So yeah, we have to have a dehumidifier.
Yeah. And I'm in central Washington, which is kind of desert like in humidity. So yeah, but it matters. You need to know. But so thank you for that tip.
Thank you for that, Yvonne. And Victor, you had your hand up. You're on mute.
I just came on in and talking about tips on the pre-treat machine, and I didn't hear which pre-treat machine you have, but I used to do a lot of pre-treat on the shirts, and all of that is sage advice about practicing and getting to know how much pre-treat you have for each machine. But the one thing that really saved me is I always had 3 or 4 of those nozzles that spray as a backup. Because when that thing gets clogged, that is a $5 to $10 annoyance that feels like $500. So it's I know a lot of people want to go through and clean them and push pressure air and all that stuff through them, and I just want to make sure. So sometimes you do the thorough cleaning and everything, but they still clog or they don't spray evenly. And their number one answer is just replace that nozzle and move on. So that would be my advice.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And it kind of ties into what we're talking about is, making sure that you have those parts because, as you're starting off, Chris, you have one printer for your business, right? I feel like maybe a goal that, if I'm not mistaken, is to have 2, right? Because in case one goes down, you have another one as backup, right? So definitely like Victor was saying, is having those tips, those nozzle tips. But you're gonna see,
I preach, get the maintenance kit. Whether you need it or not, always have the maintenance kit, because I can't tell you how many times it has saved us because we had the dampeners we needed or we had the tube we needed because we ordered the maintenance kit. And it's got, those pieces, parts that you don't think about, but if somebody sat down and put a kit together for us so that, we have all those wearables. It's like needing brake shoes.
For that maintenance kit that you're talking about, Yvonne, what is that maintenance kit for the pre-treatment machine or just in general?
I'm just talking in general. Like, I know that they didn't have one, and I had called and said, we really need to put a maintenance kit together for the DTF. And, they actually did do that. And I don't think they have one for the DTD, but like you said, the nozzles and everything. But if she has a printer,
They do have one for the direct to garment. I looked at it. It's like $500 or $600,
Yes.
which for all those parts, it's not bad.
Oh,
So
it
yeah,
used to be
I did look at that.
135.
That's
But
like
yeah,
cost of
it's
doing
a
business.
godsend.
And then once you get familiar with the process, you're gonna realize, what's the items that you're gonna be needing on a daily basis. That's why, so for, that's why for some of us that, went from direct to garment to direct to film, it's kind of like, we're in love with direct to film just because we're bypassing, the pre-treatment process, right? But you do have that difference in, like I said, in fit and feel. And
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken, Chris, what you talked about for your daughter's brand, it's kind of like, is it kind of like more on the vintage side, or like not too heavy ink?
Yeah, a lot of it is distressed, kind of country vintage looking. And
Okay.
I have a white toner printer, so, and it prints on film. I mean, it's different than a DTF, obviously, but similar in principle. So I have a backup, like if a catastrophe strikes for now. But I think that what Yvonne is saying is really smart, though, because it's that one part that, is going to take 10 days or 2 weeks to get. And if you're in the middle of a job, like that's an issue. So I think that's actually really wise. And I think it also speaks to like reducing waste and understanding, the importance of having what you need to do the job well. Because being able to deliver on your promise is important. Like, Victor was saying, you gotta, under promise and over deliver.
Hmm. No, definitely. And then, when it comes to, pre-treating for the stuff type of stuff that you do, right? Even pre-treating within itself, that's definitely a big learning curve. One of the things that I always did with new staff when we train them is we train them how to pre-treat with the pre-treatment gun, right? And then the machine, because you want to be prepared for what happens if your pre-treatment machine is down, right? Then your simple solution is just to have your pre-treatment gun. And it's a matter of getting really good at pre-treating with the gun, because if you get really good at the machine pressing a button, and then you have to use a gun, it's like night and day, right? So I'm not sure. Have you pre-treated with a gun before, Chris?
That's what I've been doing. And it's worked out fine.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just a lot messier. So this is, like a little mini spray booth. It just contains everything, which, I love. So I'm looking forward to
No,
having.
yeah, that's really good. So you're already set up for the worst case scenario if you have to, go back to doing it manually. And Yvonne, you had your hand up? No? Okay. So,
No,
like,
I was just saying, yeah, it's nice to have that, but it's kind of like when I was a kid, my mom would buy me 2 pair of tennis shoes and just keep rotating them so they lasted throughout the year. So um, I've always carried that with me. When I was working, I would have 2 pairs of work shoes so that I could keep trading them off and they'd last longer. And so having, everything, and cleaning is the biggest thing for us. We have, the plastic things you put your orders in. We have those hanging so that Juan knows exactly step by step what the process is to ensure that everything stays clean. And sometimes we even have parts that, we trade off. Like this month we use this one, and then we'll clean it really good, break it down. And then while that's happening, we have the second one.
no, that's really good to have your procedures, have your process. Um, so for your daughter, Chris, so I'm assuming she's gonna be focusing on like the front end, the sales and social media, and you're gonna be the behind the scenes production fulfillment center.
Yes, but the cool thing is she wants to learn the print side. She wants to know
Okay.
how the machines work. So when I say, hey, peace out, I'm going to Hawaii for a month, she can come in and use the shop. If I, like in October, I have to have surgery on my foot, I'm going to be non-weight bearing for 3 months. I'm going to lose my mind. So, during that first month when things are really hard, she'll be able to, still fulfill orders and still know how things work. And her not having a full-time job away from this will give her the opportunity to have the time to learn that stuff. But it will be cool because we'll get to do it together. So I don't mind doing it. I can be a workhorse, but the idea of doing it together and her learning and becoming independent on these things on her own at some point is awesome too.
No, that's
Because
really
you
good.
can't be the only one, like you were saying, when you're on vacation and you're in the dead zone and you come back and you have 50 messages. Like that's not the most effective way to run a business, because if everything relies on you, like nobody is irreplaceable and we break.
Mhm.
Stuff happens. So I love
Yeah.
that she wants to learn and is going to have the time to learn.
No, that's really good because you guys are going to be a team, right? And then it gives you time if you already know, like, okay, you're going to be getting foot surgery, you're going to have that situation. Then, especially now that you got your printer, you're going to see that the software is not that hard to use, right? Especially with all the advanced stuff that you're doing on Kindle and, all the stuff that you showed us. The software is going to be really easy for you, and it's literally the same stuff over and over. The tips that I
It's the
would give you
repetition. It's the
yeah,
repetition that I need. Yeah.
because have you already gone through the process? You said you did a nozzle check, but have you gone through the process of like printing your first shirt?
I didn't even do a nozzle check. I literally just threw a shirt on the machine and said, let's go. And so I like kind of trial by fire with the software and was able to figure out how to bring something in and size it and print it. But it's like, there's a few steps to that RIP software. And I found myself a couple times going, oh, what do I do next? Or it didn't want to recognize the printer. So like, oh, I gotta go click that button, and so I need to learn like how to reset some of the defaults. So that stuff is always there. So it's little things
Yeah,
like that, kind of more troubleshooting. But yeah, I was able to print right off the bat. And like I said, the very first print was perfect. Not a line in sight. The color was spot on. It was so cool. It was so encouraging. So
yeah,
the only thing that I think is crazy is that stupid little security key. Like my port is hooked, to my power cord. So I don't want to have that thing sticking out all the time, if I'm traveling with my computer or whatever. So like I couldn't play with the software while I was gone because I didn't have the security key with me. And I was like, oh, is there a way to get around that? I don't know, maybe not. But
no,
yeah, and what was funny is I pulled it out, and left. And so like the little window that says you need your security key, you can't even close that. I couldn't
no.
close the RIP software. So it just stayed open the whole weekend because, oh well, like just to taunt me. But yeah, so I have printed, and it printed great. I printed, I don't know, like I got a half a dozen shirts here I printed just to try out different fabrics and different color combinations and get accustomed to like how to adjust the table and, like all the things.
Mhm.
So I'm super encouraged.
No, and then you'll see that it's super easy to use. Especially once you start playing around with the settings. Also on the pre-treatment side, just because I'm thinking, you know, with the type of graphics that you're doing, I don't know what type of pre-treatment you're using. But that would even recommend like the light garment pre-treatment. So I'm not sure which pre-treatment are you using right now, or do you have?
I've been using the Cheater brand, Cheater. And it's worked really well. They have one for light and one for dark.
Okay.
With the Rico, I didn't even have to pre-treat if I was printing on like white or really light, like off-white or eggshell or whatever. It was pretty darn good wearability and retention. But it is my understanding that you guys recommend pre-treating everything, which is fine. It's just a
Yeah,
step, it's fine.
because
Do what you need to do.
you can print like white apparel, light apparel without pre-treating, right? But you'll notice that if you pre-treat, the colors are just gonna pop more. The
Mhm.
washability is gonna be better. So you're gonna overall the quality is gonna be there, right?
Yeah,
But there
right.
was customers that they wanted that vintage washed look, right? So we would use very light pre-treatment. On the printer, we would make it print faster, right? Because the normal settings are like 1440 by 1440. We would do the 1440 by 720, which just makes the print a lot faster, lays down less ink, so it gives you more of that vintage
Mhm.
look. And then it's kind of, the advantage that you have, tying it to the lean manufacturing is, that you're gonna be starting off, with your daughter's clothing line. There's a certain style, and then that's gonna allow you to dial it in, right?
Mhm.
And then expand from there, because is your goal to then be able to do like printing for other businesses, or is it just primarily for your daughter's brand?
Well, so kind of my side hustle that helps pay for all these pieces of equipment is I've been doing branded merchandise. So like local businesses, logos and, branded apparel. And I've even been doing some of the auto vinyl, and that's what's paying for all this equipment, right? So she doesn't have to incur that cost for her business. And that's worked out great because that's something that I can just kind of do at my own pace, and still keep what she needs from me as the priority. Hopefully
Okay, so
it'll take
you're
off. I won't need to do
yeah,
anything.
yeah, for sure. So you're saying that you're already doing like printed apparel for other companies, right?
Mhm.
And then is that something that I'm assuming you've been outsourcing? I know we've talked about different orders that you've done.
Yeah, the last one that was just under 100 pieces. I did some of it myself, and then I ordered film for some of it because it was just getting too kind of complicated with the printer that I had. And since my that FreeJet was late in arriving, that was kind of a good resource to get it done. So. But it's kind of funny
No,
because
that's
like the vinyl side of things, like the auto graphics is not really where my interest is, but I've already gotten referrals on that. So it's like, well, you know what? It's money is money, right? And I still
yeah.
get to be creative and do all the things. So at this point, I'm like, if the job is there, I will do it because
Mhm.
again, it facilitates the ability to be able to do the things for Marissa.
No, definitely. And cross training is super important. Just learning each other's, you know, because you don't want to be down, and then they're like your daughter relies on you. Now you can't get printed merchandise. It's kind of like you're dead in the water, right? So cross
Mhm.
training for us is super important. In case somebody's gone, somebody else knows how to do that responsibility. And just being off the feet, you could be like, hey, I'm gonna be the software person. You just gotta be my loader. You're gonna be
Right.
loading and unloading. I'm gonna be by the computer. Because it's funny because when I first got staff as well, there's some staff that weren't really tech savvy or good at software, and even me setting it up where I was gone and I can remotely log into the computer, see where they're getting stuck, make adjustments to the software. But then once they learn it, it's literally like, for me it was like a circle, right? You just literally go from like your sizing to the environment to the positioning, but it becomes very repetitive. One of the things that I would recommend on your printer is, I'm not sure if you're experimented with the dot size. Um, I personally would use medium large for all my sizes, and then there's something called, I don't know if your software. I think all software has it for the free. It's called fuzziness. It's
Mhm.
kind of like towards the top middle area.
Yes.
15 to 20% is the ideal number for that. That just like if you were to do it, kind of how Yvonne was saying, for R&D and testing. If you were to do the exact same image with zero and then another one with 15 to 20%, you would notice the difference. It just kind of pops. It just kind of pops more. When you're doing the dot size, a medium large, what it does is it just lays down a thicker ink dot,
Mhm.
and then it just looks, it just, in my opinion, it just looks better, right? You can even go to like the dot size when you go to a large. That allows you to print further away from the garment, because when I was doing it, we were known for doing all over direct to garment, right? So we would do like the sleeves and pretty much the whole shebang. And I had a larger direct to garment printer that printed the full body, and then we would use the free jets to print the sleeves. So I had special glass. I made like jigs out of glass,
Mhm.
inserting the. So like we would do a lot of crazy stuff with And then that's the advantage with the free jet is that it moves over the print area. So you can get really creative with it versus other printers where it goes like in the chamber and you really can't do much in there. So the free jet, you're gonna see, Chris, the free jet is gonna give you a lot more versatility. It's kind of like how Yvonne was saying, definitely experiment with it, experiment with the settings. As long as you don't delete an environment, you should be good. You can accidentally, if I'm not mistaken, you can accidentally delete an environment without it saying like, "Are you sure you want to delete this?" Right? You can accidentally click something and it's gone. Uh, Worst case scenario, if your environments are gone, if I'm not mistaken, Mauricio, you can just re-upload them into your RIP
Yeah,
and
reinstall.
reinstall them and stuff like that. So you'll definitely be good with that. One another thing, we're already at the 3 o'clock mark, but another thing I would recommend for your RIP, Chris, you can start saving certain settings, right? Um, like for us, I used to have a clothing brand. They were a beach brand where we would the fastest that the printer prints is 720 by 720. Like that's the max fast that I would do. Super light, super vintage, and under the environment. Once you get familiar with how to save it, that one was called our fast setting. Then we have, dark garment, black shirt. So you can give it special names for each one. And then when you click on it, it'll automatically put, 720 by 720, whatever dot size. For us, our default placement was 2 inches down because we found that most of the stuff is 2 inches down. And if it's something where it was maybe 2.5, the people loading the printer knew that, okay, I'm just gonna pull the shirt a little half an inch off the thing. You can just quickly putting that setting and then it doing everything for you. Especially with one printer, you're gonna be able to see like, okay, if you're gonna go through the learning curve, right? But if you only have one printer, you're like, okay, I'm realistically full color, regular size 12 by 12. You're gonna be like at 7 to 8 an hour, right? Realistically. But once you're like, okay, let me get an additional platen. So while that one is printing, I already have the next one loaded. Because even like unloading and loading and hitting print, you'll be surprised you get an extra 1 to 2 shirts an hour
That makes
versus like
perfect
taking it
sense
out.
because it takes a few minutes to, figure out how to do the tucking without stretching the garment or,
Yeah.
contorting it. So, hey, I know it's 3 o'clock and I wanted to say the reason I asked for emails and phone numbers is because I didn't want to hijack the call. So thank you. I mean, that was not my intention. I appreciate that you kind of directed it at me and I love the information, but my apologies to everyone else because it's not the Chris show, right?
No, well, the thing is that it's the everybody show, right? And we always try to focus. It's like I have it's kind of like the topic was like lean manufacturing. They're adding having staff help you, but some of you guys that are always join us, it kind of we veer it off trying to stay on topic with helping whoever needs help, right?
I
So
appreciate
it's
it.
not, yeah, so it's not like, oh man, Christian, she just hijacked it. It's more like you know, um, how do we help you out and how do we keep it to the same, kind of like pulling the same topic, right? Because if I was just to be reading off my step by step, I think I would kind of put myself to sleep too, right? I would start dozing off. So I always like to I like to me and Mauricio joke around with it. We kind of like to freestyle it based on what we feel that people need to learn, right? Especially a lot of us like Ron has a free jet, Mr. Renault has a free jet, Yvonne they have. So it's like Victor, and like everybody on here has a free jet, right? And you're the one that's just getting started. So it's like, okay, I see how we can help you out. And uh, Mike Enriquez, you have your hand up.
I did. I did. I was wondering if we can, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but if we can go back and maybe do some printing for some of the meetings. I know that I've been struggling with, you know, doing direct to garment for some of these prints that I have.
Like doing like a tutorial.
Yes.
Yeah, we can definitely add
He's
something to
talking
that.
kind
Uh-huh.
of like what we used to do, Edgar, where you went into the studio and had the
Preliminary.
machine and took it apart and cleaned it or serviced it, or that's what he's talking about.
That and
Okay,
also,
yeah.
like you were saying, some of these full body prints, I was trying to mess with doing something like that, but I wasn't having any luck.
Like doing the full body prints.
Right.
Yeah, we can definitely add that to the list. Maybe like specialty printing and things like that. That would require me to drive all the way from LA to Orange County, but I think I can squeeze that in. It would require Mauricio to set up more cameras. So yeah, I guess we can actually do our job, right, Mauricio?
Well, you could do
Yeah.
a couple, once you get there, you could do a couple ahead of time, like create some content, and that way you'd all done it once.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
You can also
If
go
this
back to the YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel has all the previously recorded Creators Lives that we've done, and there are some excellent videos that were recorded back there. So that's just an option. But I'll tell you this, when you're doing direct to garment, your number one priority is to get the pre-treat right. Because if your pre-treat's not right, everything else is going to come out bad. So what I would suggest to you, so you can get a quick footing and understand what you're doing, whoever your supplier is, buy you a couple of pre-treated shirts already. Put that pre-treated shirt on there and get it ready. Send your garment to it. Take a look at it, and it's trial and error. And then you'll get to see what good pre-treat is like versus what, let's say, if your pre-treatment spot is off, then you can compare it to what you've already done. But pre-treat is the main thing. If that's right, everything else is going to come out pretty flawless.
And then Mauricio, he just posted the link on the chat for the creators, to get all the information for that. But yeah, we can definitely do something in the studio, like we've done stuff in the fulfillment area. Maybe we can do something about the pre-jet, Mauricio. So we'll definitely, chat about that. But it's already past the cutoff time. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So thank you guys for joining. Hopefully we're able to bring you guys value. Like as always, without you guys, it would just be me and Mauricio trying to justify why we even have a job, right? So we definitely appreciate you guys joining, and we'll be in touch and see you guys next week.